Hi guys, it's Miss Simon. So I wanted to do this video today for math again. A lot of you joined in yesterday for the live session and got some feedback that said that we thought that really helped. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, that's fine. I recorded the lesson and there'll be another chance to join in on the live session probably later on in this week, maybe next week. So today we're going to be moving on. Yesterday we talked about relating length, perimeter, area, and volume. Today we're going to be talking about something called composite figures and finding the volume of composite figures. So if we take a look at this word composite, okay? Composite figures, okay, we can kind of hear and see the word compose in there. And if we know the word compose means to make or put together. So a composite figure or a composite solid is made up of more than one rectangular prism. So it's a solid that is made up with more than one prism. And we can find the volume of those composite figures. So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and turn in your workbooks to page 333, and you're also going to need your notes out. So page 333 looks something like this, okay? 333, it has a few figures at the top, okay? And we can see what those composite figures look like. All right, that's page 333. All right, so I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to give you some notes that I want you guys to write down, and then we'll dive into the lesson on page 333. Okay. So a composite solid is, like we said, a shape made up by putting together two or more rectangular prisms, okay? And we can find the volume of that composite solid by using that same formula we've been working with volume. So that length times the width times the height. And we have steps to find the volume of a composite figure, okay? So our first step is going to be divide the composite figure into individual rectangular prisms. So if we take a look at this one for an example, okay? You're going to have to divide that composite figures into prisms we already know how to work with, okay? This one that did it for you, they have divided it into two. Your second step is going to be to find the missing values of the length, width, or the height, if there are any. So sometimes they might not give you the length, width, and the height of each one of each composite figure. And you're going to have to use the values you do know to figure that out. Step 3 is going to be find the volume of each rectangular prism using the volume formula. So then you're going to find the volume of each prism by using length times width times height. And then your last step is going to be add the volumes of those prisms together, and then you'll get the total volume of that composite figure. So I'll give you a minute. Go ahead and I want you to copy down this in your notes, okay? And what a composite solid is and the steps to finding the volume of the composite figure. That's what we're going to take a look at with today. So I'll give you a minute. Go ahead and write that down, and then we'll move on to number 1. All right, if you're not done, just go ahead and pause the video, make sure you have that down, and we're moving on to number 1. So before we go to number 1, you guys can see on that workbook page that they gave you a composite figure, okay? They gave you that figure at the top that you can see, and we can see that that's clearly made up of two different rectangular prisms. So the first step that we need to do is to split that rectangular prism to make it into the different rectangular prisms. We need to make them rectangular prisms. So if we look at number 1 in your workbook, it did that splitting for you, okay? It said we're gonna need to split it here because that's gonna make two rectangular prisms that we know how to find the volume of, okay? So this step they did for you. They're not always going to do it for you. You guys are going to be able to do it on your own, okay? So let's move on to step 2. Find the missing values of length, width, or height if there are any, okay? So my first step that I'm going to have you guys do as well is you need to label which one is going to be prism 1 and which one is going to be prism 2. So I'm going to have this blue one as prism 1, and then you're going to use this white one as prism 2. I can also, if you look on the workbook page, you guys, I'll kind of hold it up. You can see that I did that there. I made this one volume prism 1 and this one prism 2. Okay, so now I need to see if I'm missing any lengths, widths, or heights for any of these prisms before I start finding the volume of anything. Okay, so let's look at this blue prism, because remember, I've labeled this blue prism as prism 1. Well, let me see. Do I have a length? Okay. Oh, I have a length. My length here is going to be 3 inches. Okay. Do I have a width? Well, no, I am missing a width. Do I have a height? Yes, I have a height. Okay. So now I need to, like we said, we are missing a width. So we need to find the width of prism 1. So let's fill in what we know. We know my length already is 3 inches. So that's going to be 3 inches times, okay, I need to say, well, I need to find my width. This is my width, and that's what I'm missing. Okay, well, I can use this other prism to help me figure out what that width is going to be. Because if I look at this length here, what I know about rectangles, if this is going to be the same as this, we can visually see that that is the same value. So my width for this prism is going to be 5 inches, so I fill that in. And then my height, which I know is 9 inches. Okay, so I have all 3 values now for that prism 1. Now I move on to prism 2. Okay, now I can find the volume. Now I can multiply all these values together. 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, and at 15 times 9 is going to be 135 cubic inches. So my volume of prism 1 is 135 cubic inches. Okay, so now I'm done with 1. I can move on to 2. Okay, now I need to check and see, do I have any missing values of 2? Okay, I have a length, which is 15 inches. But with this 15 inches, guys, we should see this whole prism, this white prism is not going to be 15 inches, okay? Because part of this blue prism is in there. So I need to figure out, well, what is the length of just prism 2, okay? And I use, again, I can use my other prism to help me, all right? So I can see that this whole thing is 15, okay? But I don't want this whole thing, I just want the white value, okay? So if I look at this prism, I can use this 3 to help me. So this blue value here is going to be 3. So to find this white value, I'm going to need to do 15 minus 3, which is going to be 12. So this 15, you can cross out this 15, and it's going to become a 12 inches. Okay, and if you guys want to actually cross that out on your workbook page and make it 12 inches, you can. Okay, so I have my length is 12 inches, so I can fill that in. 12 inches times, well, my width is going to be 5 inches. And finally, my height, which I see here, is 3 inches. Okay, now that I have those values, I can go ahead and multiply them together. Okay, so I know that 12 times 5 is going to be 60. 60 times 3 is going to be 180 cubic inches. All right, and now that I've found those 2 volumes, my last and final step is going to be to add the volume of all the prisms together. Okay, so I am going to simply add 135 plus 180. And when I add those together, I should get a total value of 360 and 15 cubic inches. So that would be the volume of my composite figure. So if I follow these steps, I should be able to. The hardest part, guys, for some of you is going to be to find that missing value, or if you need to change the value of one of the prisms. So I would specifically take my time on that. I know you guys know how to use and work with this volume formula now. I'm really not concerned about that. And we know how to add two numbers together. The big step here is just going to be finding those missing values and changing those values if you need to. All right, so some of you might have looked at that figure and gone, well, Miss Simon, I didn't split it that way. I split it here. Okay, and that's okay. What's nice about this is you can split it anywhere as long as it forms two rectangular prisms. So for number 2, it's looking at that same exact composite figure, but now it's splitting it differently. Instead of drawing the line here to split it, they drew the line here. So we're gonna do that same thing. Again, I want you to label your composite, your rectangular prisms after you split them. So this blue one's gonna be volume 1 again, prism 1. This white one's gonna be volume 2, okay? So now I'm still looking at that blue one first. So let's look at volume 1. Now step 2, I need to see if I have a length, width, and a height for each of my prisms. Well, I'm starting with volume 1. So let's see. I have a length, I have a width, and I have a height. So I'm good. I can fill those values in. So I have 15 inches times, my width is going to be 5 inches, and my height is going to be 3 inches. Okay, and I can multiply those values together. Okay, 15 times 5. Okay, if I do 15 times 5, I'll get a value of 75. Okay, and then I can do 75 inches times 3 inches, and I'll get a value of 225 cubic inches. So we can fill that in. Okay. Now moving on to my second prism. My second prism is going to be that white prism. Okay, remember I need to check, do I have a length? Do I have a width? Do I have a height? Do I need to change anything? Okay, so I have a length. My length is 3 inches. I do not have a width. I am missing my width, but I can use the other rectangular prism to help me. Okay, what I know, well, if this here is 5 inches, this width is also going to be 5 inches. So I can fill in the 5 inches. And then finally, I need my height. Okay, and what we should notice about this height, guys, is this whole thing is 9 inches. Okay, so this white is not going to be 9 inches because that is part of the blue one as well. Okay, so when I break that up, I can use this other figure to help me. Well, I know that this length, this height here is 3 inches. So this height is going to be 9 minus that 3. So this height of this white one is going to be 6 inches. Okay, and again, on your workbook page, I would highly advise you to change that to 6 inches like I did there. Okay. Well, now I can multiply those values together. Okay, I know 5 times 3 is 15, and 15 times 6 is going to give me 90 cubic inches. All right, now I can go on to my last step here, where it's just to add those two volumes together. So I have 225 plus 90, okay? And if I add 225 plus 90 together, I am going to get a value of 315 cubic inches. Okay, so what you guys might have noticed is we got the same volume. We got the 315 cubic inches for 1 and 315 cubic inches for 2. Okay, 315 for 2 as well. Okay, and that shows me that we did this correctly. It's the same composite figure, I just split it differently, but I can do that. I can split it wherever I see those rectangular prisms. All right, and that's what number 3 is asking. Number 3, compare your answers to problem 1 and 2. What conclusions can you make? You can make the conclusion that you can split it in any way as long as you split them and they make rectangular prisms, okay? And we can approve that because we did get the same answer there. All right, so let's move on to number 4. Okay, again, we're going to follow those 4 steps that we talked about in the beginning. So that's why I said it's very important that you have those in your notes. Okay. So this one, my first step, I need to split the composite figure into rectangular prisms. Okay. You guys, again, you can split this however you think you want to split it. Okay. Some of you might see it here. You need to split the line. Some of you might see it here. Okay. Whatever one you see is fine, guys. Okay. I'm going to split it here. So I'm going to draw a line here. Okay. And that is where I am going to split. So I would advise you, go ahead and in your workbook page, you can draw that line there because that will split it for you. Okay, and that will split it into 2 prisms. Okay, and then you can label, I'm going to label them. Okay, my one on top, I'm going to label as prism 1. And then that one to the side, I'm going to label as prism 2. So I just did that. I have prism 1 and prism 2. Okay, I wish I could do it on this, but I cannot. All right, so now moving on to my second step, I need to make sure I have the length, the width, and the height for both prisms. So I split it here. Okay, I did split it here. All right, so let's look at prism 1. Okay. Do I have a length? Do I have a height for prism 1? Well, I split this line here, okay? I know that this whole thing is going to be 24 centimeters, okay? But since I split it here, I know that this whole length isn't going to be 24. So I can use what I know to help me figure out what this length is going to be since I split it here, okay? Well, if I put a line here, since this is 6, this also has to be 6. So this length is going to turn into 24 minus 6. We know 24 minus 6 is 18. So that length has become 18 centimeters. And I wrote that right there, guys. That says now change. I crossed out that 24. That's become 18. Okay, so now let's fill that in. I have 18. What's my unit? Centimeters. Times. Well, let's see. I have my length. Let's see what my width is. Do I have a width? Yes, I have a width. My width's going to be 8 centimeters. Times my height, which is 6 centimeters. Okay, now I can multiply those together. 18 times 8 times 6. 18 times 8, if you guys do that, you're going to get 144. Then you can multiply 144 times 6. And you're going to get a value of 864 cubic centimeters. Again, cubic because we're finding volume. Now moving on to prism 2. Okay, remember I split that there. Okay, so I have to see, do I have a length? Do I have a width? Do I have a height? Well, I do have a length. My length is 6 centimeters. Okay, now I need to look for my width. Okay, this value here is going to represent my width. Okay, well, I don't have a width here, but I can use this other prism to help me. Okay, if the width of this prism is 8, the width of this prism is 8 because we can see that they're stacked on top of each other. Okay, so this width is going to be 8. And my height is 16 centimeters. Okay, now I can multiply those together. 6 times 8 we know is 48. Then I can multiply 48 times 16. When I multiply 48 times 16, I get 768 cubic centimeters. Okay, now I can move on to that last step. Now I am just going to add 864 plus 768. And that's going to give me my total volume of that composite figure, which I'll give you guys a minute to add those together. Okay, you should have got an A value of 1,632 cubic centimeters. Okay. All right, moving on to that next one. And again, the same thing as Miss Smith said yesterday. If you guys change the order here, say you said something, a different value, one of these other values was the length, that's fine, okay, because we do know that multiplication is commutative, okay? But if you have different values here, you need to go back and check what you got, because the values need to be the same, they can just be in a different order. All right, moving on to number 5. Okay. If we look at number 5 here, again, my first step is going to be to split this into rectangular prisms, okay? Some of you might say, hey, Miss Simon, I see 3 here, okay? So some of you might say, hey, I can split it here and here. Yes, you can if you want to do that, but I'm going to take the easier route, and I can split it here to just have to find the volume of 2, because if I only have to find the volume of 2, that's going to be a little easier than finding the volume of 3. So I'm going to split it right there, okay? Again, I would highly advise you on your workbook page, please split that, okay? And then you can label it as volume 1 and volume 2. Okay, just like I did here. I split that in half. All right, so I put the bottom one as volume 1 and the top smaller one as volume 2. Okay, so now let's check and see if I have any missing length, widths, or height. So I'm going to be looking at this bottom one first. Okay, well, I have a length of 14, I have a width of 5, and I have a height of 3. And I don't need to change any of those values because those all connect with that bottom prism. So that's perfect. Now I can just fill in my values. So my length, I said, was 14 feet times my width was 5 feet times my height, which is 3 feet. Okay. And I can multiply those all together. Okay. If I do 14 times 5, 14 times 5, give you a second, you should get a value of 70. And then 70 times 3, well, 7 times 3 is 21, add the 0. So you get a value of 210 cubic feet. Okay, moving on to volume 2. Let's see if I have any missing values, any missing length, width, or height. Okay, well, I have a length here. I have 4 feet as my length. It looks like I have a height, which is 2 feet, but it seems like I'm missing a width, okay? Well, I can use that other prism to help me, okay? So if this has a width of 5, this is going to be a width of 5 because they are stacked exactly on top of each other. So I can fill that in. And again, you can write that on your workbook page. So now that you know that that height is 5 feet, you can put that in there, okay? So my length, let's fill it in. I have 4 feet times my width, which I just found out, this right here is going to be 5 feet times my height, which is 2 feet. Okay. Now, just like I've been doing, length times width times height to find that volume. 4 times 5 is 20 feet. 20 times 2 is going to be 40. So that smaller prism is going to be 40 cubic feet. And this is where we can also use some number sense, guys, because if you solve for this one and you get some really high number, like a number that's higher than this one, you should know that that's not correct because we can visually see that this prism is smaller than this one. All right, now moving on to my last and final step. Now I can add those two volumes together to get the total volume. So I have 210 plus 40, and I get a value of 250 cubic feet. Please make sure you have that unit of cubic feet. You are still finding volume. Okay. All right, go ahead and we can flip on the back. Okay. So I'm going to make my screen into the full screen now because I want to actually be able to use my whiteboard, and I want to show you guys what I'm doing on the workbook page, because this is where we might have to split it into more than just two. So I want to make sure you can keep your stuff organized, and I'm going to show you how you guys should do that. Okay. All right, so on number 6 on the back, so page 334, okay, it says this building consists of 2 rectangular prisms, a small space for offices and an attached larger space for warehouse storage. How much space does the building take up? Okay, so if we look at that there, we should be able to see. All right, so my first step is just to split that into 2 rectangular prisms. And if I look at this one actually is the way it's drawn, it does a pretty easy job of splitting it for you. So I split it as this is, my big one's gonna be my volume 1, and my small one is going to be my volume 2. Okay, so now I need to look and see if I am missing any values there, if I am missing anything, okay? So I need to check my length, my width, and my height. So I'm gonna go back to the other screen so I can show you guys, make sure you have those values, and then I'll kind of go back and forth. Okay. All right, so when we split this, guys, okay, loading, okay? Like I said, it does a really good job of kind of splitting it for you. So I'm going to use this big one here as volume 1. So I need to check and see, do I have everything I need, okay? So I have a length, I have a width, and I have a height, okay? So I can fill that in, okay? I can fill that in as volume 1 is going to equal, I'm gonna write it on my whiteboard. So volume 1 is gonna be 50 meters times my width, which is 30 meters, times 12 meters, okay? Just like that. So hope you got 50 meters times 30 meters times 12 meters, and that's volume 1. So now I need to multiply those values together, and I'll get my volume 1 total, okay? So my volume 1, 50 times 30, 5 times 3 is 15, add your 2 zeros, so 1,500. And then when I do 1,500 times 12, I get a value of 18,000, okay? So 18,000 is going to be my volume of the first rectangular prism, okay? So 18,000 cubic meters, okay? All right, now let's go to the smaller one, okay? That's going to be my prism 2. So I'm going to put volume 2. Well, now I need to check and see, do I have all of the values I need? Well, my length, I have a length. My length right here is going to be 15, okay? Do I have a width? Yes, I have a width here. That's going to be 10. They give me that. Do I have a height? Yes, I have 5 meters. All of those were given to us. I didn't even have to find any of those, okay? So now I just plug those in. I have 15 meters times 10 meters times 5 meters, okay? Now I can multiply all those values together. Okay, 15 times 10 times 5. 15 times 10 is going to be 150. And then I'm going to do 150 times 5, which is going to be 750 cubic meters. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see that at the bottom. All right, so my last and final step, step 4, add those 2 volumes together. Okay, so I'm going to take the total volume is going to equal 18,000 plus 750, and that's going to be a total of 18,750 cubic meters, okay? So 18,750 cubic meters. All right, so moving on to number 7. Okay. The size of the furnace depends on the volume of the air in the building. A heating contractor must size a furnace for the 3-unit apartment building shown in the sketch at the right. What is the volume of the air in the building? So we need to use this composite figure to find the volume of the air. Okay, well, if you guys look at this one, there is no possible way to just split this into 2. You are going to have to split it into 3 different rectangular prisms, okay? So, but they show you a way that's pretty easy of where you know you're going to split it. Obviously, you're going to need to split it here, and you're going to need to split it here. So for this one, I'm going to have 3 different rectangular prisms, okay? But the same steps apply. I just need to see, do I have a length, a width, and a height for all of them? Do I need to change them? So I'm going to make this one my volume 1, I'm going to make this one my volume 2, and I'm going to make this one my volume 3, okay? So I'm going to go back to my full screen because since there is 3, I want to show you how you guys should split this. Okay. So what I did here was I split volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3. Okay, and before I even started multiplying anything, I needed to look and see if I have a length, width, and height for each one. Okay, so volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. All right, so let me go back to the other screen. I know it's a lot of splitting here, guys. A lot of sharing screens. All right, so if I look at this, okay, like I said, this one is volume 1. Do I have a length, width, and a height? I do. I have a length of 30. I have a width of 20 and a height of 25. Okay, or you should length of 25, width of 20, height of 30. Okay, so I have all I need for that first one. So I am going to fill that in. Okay. All right, so I can have volume 1 is going to equal 25 feet times 20 feet times 30 feet. Okay. Now let's move on to volume 2. Do I have a length, width, and a height? Okay, well, I do have a length here. Look, if I have a length, I have a length of 25. Okay. Now I need a width and I need a height. Okay, but again, I can use the other prisms around me to help me. Let's first look at the width. Okay. Well, the width is this here. So I know that this building fits completely between the other 2. So if this building has a width of 20, this building is going to have a width of 20. Okay, so my width for this one is going to be 20. Now I need my height, okay? My height is just this tall here. Well, let's use the other prisms I have. I know that this height is 20, so I just need the rest of this. Well, let's go use this one. This whole height is 30. If this whole height is 30 and this is 20, what am I going to have to add to 20 to get a whole height of 30? 10. Okay, so my height of this building is going to be 10. So let's fill in what I know. I know my length is 25 times my width, which is 20, times my height, which I just figured out is 10. Okay. And I can multiply those together. 25 times 20, 25 times 2 is 50, add the 0, 500. 500 times 10 is going to be 5,000. Oh, and I just realized we never multiplied the other one together. So let's go back to volume 1 and multiply that. 25 times 20, 500. Okay. 500 times 3 is times 30 is going to be 1,500 plus the 0. So that's going to be 15,000. Okay, now move on to volume 3. Okay, volume 3 is going to be this one right here. Okay, so do I have a length, width, and height? Yes, I have a length of 25. I have a width of 20, and I have a height of 20. It's given me all that for us, so I fill that in. 25 times 20 times 20. Okay, and when I multiply that together, 25 times 20, 25 times 2 is 50, plus the 0 is 500. 500 times 20, okay? 500 times 2 is going to be 1,000. Add that other 0. That's going to be 10,000. Okay? So I have the volume of the first prism is 15,000. The volume of the second prism is 5,000. And the volume of the third prism is 10,000. Okay? Which makes sense. We know that the one in the middle is the smallest. So now I need to add those volumes together. So my volume total is going to equal 15,000 plus 5,000 plus 10,000. And I'll give you a second to add those together on your own. Okay, you should have gotten 30,000 cubic feet. Hopefully you guys can see that. 30,000 cubic feet when we added all of those together. Okay, so for that one, you did have to split it into 3. All right, let's look at the last one. Okay. The last one here, an in-ground swimming pool often has steps that are made from poured concrete. In the sketch of the steps at the right, the steps are identical, each measuring 18 inches from side to side, 12 inches from front to back, and 8 inches tall. Calculate the amount of concrete that is needed to form the steps, okay? So all of these steps are identical, okay? And if I'm gonna make this a little bigger, hopefully you guys can see, okay? But if we look at this one looks quite similar to the other one we just did, because if you notice, I'm going to have to split this into 3 rectangular prisms, okay? So I would be splitting it here, here, and that would be my third one. So I have V1, V2, and V3. I have 3 rectangular prisms there. Okay. Well, let's start with V1. Let's start with what we know, okay? Do we have a length? Do we have a width? Do we have a height? Well, I have a length of 12 inches, I have a width of 18 inches, and a height of 8 inches for the first one. So I have everything that I need. I'm gonna go ahead and flip back to the other screen, guys. Hold on one second. Okay, so let's fill in what we know there, okay? My length is 12, so V1 equals 12 inches times my height, or my width, which is 18 inches, times my height, which is 8 inches. Okay, so there I have 12 times 18 times 8. And go ahead and multiply those together. 12 times 18 times 8. 12 times 18. Okay, it's going to be 216. 216 times 8. It's going to be 1,728 cubic inches. Okay, so 1,728 cubic inches is for V1. Well, now I need to figure out V2 and V3. Well, some of you guys might be looking at that picture and go, Miss Simon, they don't give us any other lengths. But they did give us some information in the problem that's going to help us here. Let's go back to this problem. says that these steps are identical, okay, which means that they are the same. So if I'm gonna blow up this picture a little bit, guys, so you can see. If this 1,728 is going to be the volume of this one step, if I was to draw a line completely across, I can see that 2 steps are going to fit in this space here in V2. And then if I was to continue, I can see that 3 steps are going to fit into this one here. So V2 is just going to be the volume of V1 multiplied by 2. So if I multiply 1,728 times 2, I'll get my value of that second prism. So go ahead and do that. 1,728 times 2 is going to equal 3,456 cubic inches. Okay. All right, now if we look at that third prism here, guys, that's just 3 of this first prism. So I'm going to do 1,728 times 3 to find the volume of V3 there. So 1,728 times 3, if I do 1,728 times 3, I'm going to get 5,184 cubic inches. Okay, so now I know my 3 values. Okay, let me go back to the other screen. Okay, now I know my 3 values. Okay, I have V1 as 1,728 cubic inches. I have V2 as 3,456 cubic inches, and I have V3 as 5,184 cubic inches. Now, just like the 4th step of every other problem, now I just need to add all 3 of those prism values together to get the value of that composite figure. So go ahead and add those. I'll give you a couple of minutes. So my V total is going to equal 1,728 plus 3,456 plus 5,184. I'll give you a minute to add that, guys. Okay, hopefully when you added that, you got a value of 10,368 cubic inches. 10,368 cubic inches. And here's the work for all that entire problem. Okay, I hope that you guys saw that that second step was just 2 of that first one, and that third prism was just 3 of the first one, because that'll help you in this problem. Okay. And that last question is just asking, draw a line segment to show the way you decompose the pool steps. Okay, which we kind of already talked about together, but if you didn't, it's just asking, where did you split that into V1, V2, and V3? And we can kind of see that there is how I split it and how you should have split it too. All right, so I hope this video was helpful. This is kind of how you find the volume of composite solids. Again, really nothing new. We're just adding one more step of adding all of those prism volumes together to get the value of that composite figure. Hope you guys have a good day. Bye.